welcome to your own personal deep dive, curated just for you.
That's right.
And today we're going to be looking at a really cool
Yeah.
academic paper all about legal philosophy.
That's right, from Tilburg University.
It's from Tilburg University. So
Yeah.
get ready for some big questions
Yeah.
like, what makes a law actually powerful?
Yeah.
Is there really a connection
Right.
between like law and morality?
Yeah.
Or is it all just rules on top of rules?
Or is it just like a game, like a formal game? We're going to be looking at that today. It's going to be a journey that takes us beyond just knowing the laws to understanding the core ideas and sometimes even the messy realities behind them.
I love it.
We're going to be looking at how law and power and society all intertwine.
Okay, let's dive in.
Okay.
First up, we have legal positivism.
Yeah.
So this is basically the idea that law is what we humans decide. It is.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's a human construct.
It's a human
Yeah.
structure.
It's not something that's inherent or
not handed down from above.
but made and shaped by us.
By us.
And positivists believe that law is validated through the structured system of rules.
Okay.
So you have constitutions, you have legal codes, you have court judgments. All of those form this hierarchy.
Right.
And importantly, they draw a line between law and morality.
Okay.
Meaning a law can be officially valid
Right.
even if you personally think it's morally wrong.
So even if I think a law is totally bonkers,
Yeah.
like say a law against jaywalking, if it's gone through all the proper channels, it's still legitimate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. A great example of this thinking is Hans Kelsen,
Okay.
who's a major figure in legal positivism.
Right.
His pure theory of law
Their theory of law.
argues that legal systems are self-contained
Right.
with their validity based on this fundamental norm.
Okay.
He called it the Grundnorm.
The Grundum.
It's like this pyramid with the Grundnorm as the cornerstone at the top.
Okay, so the Grundnorm is kind of like the ultimate
You can say that.
rule book
Yeah.
that all other laws
Yeah.
come from.
Yeah, Kelsen even compared legal systems to glasses that we wear.
What?
They provide a specific lens,
Okay.
a neutral way to look at facts and actions.
I like that.
But like any lens, it shapes what we see, right?
That's pretty profound.
Yeah.
What happens when those glasses get fogged up,
Oh,
like during a crisis?
that's a great question.
Do the rules still hold up?
That leads us to another legal scholar,
Okay.
Carl Schmitt.
Carl Schmitt.
He kind of threw a wrench in Kelsen's theory
Okay.
by pointing out that during emergencies like wars, those exceptional times, the normal legal processes can break down.
Right, like during the pandemic.
Exactly.
When governments were like, okay,
Yeah.
we need to make some decisions.
Yeah.
That might bend the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
To keep things
keep things
from falling apart.
falling apart. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Schmitt was all about decisionism.
Decisionism.
The idea that whoever holds sovereign power
Okay.
can make decisions outside the pre-existing legal framework
Wow.
when a crisis hits.
So he's saying sometimes you got to break the rules to save the system.
Yeah, it's controversial for sure.
Yeah.
Because it challenges this stability and predictability
Right,
that
law.
we expect from law.
So are we allowed to protest laws then?
Well, that brings up
If
the
he's saying you can break them?
Yeah, that brings us to this clash of titans.
Okay.
Natural law versus positivism.
Okay.
The Radbrook-Hartfuller debate gets right at the heart of whether law and morality are truly separate.
Okay.
Especially after horrific events like Nazi Germany.
Right.
Gustav Radbrook, a German scholar,
Okay.
argued that if a law becomes intolerably unjust, it loses its validity, its legal character.
So he's saying if a law is truly evil, it's not even really a law.
That's the core of his argument. His formula suggests that there's a limit to how much injustice a legal system can bear before it loses all legitimacy.
Okay.
But then you have H.L.A. Hart,
Okay.
a strong advocate for positivism.
I'm guessing he's on the other side of the coin.
He maintains that a law is valid as long as it follows the established procedures,
Okay.
regardless of its moral content.
Wow. So Radbruch is saying an unjust law is no law at all,
Yeah.
and Hart is saying a law is a law.
A law is a law.
Period. Talk about a showdown.
Yeah, a philosophical showdown.
Is there no middle ground?
That's the crux of the debate.
Okay.
And it has huge implications for real-world situations.
Like?
Think about activism,
Yeah.
civil disobedience.
Yeah.
How far can you go to oppose a law that you believe is fundamentally wrong?
This is
This debate shapes how we answer that question.
okay. This is a lot. Can we get a little bit more grounded?
Yeah.
What about legal realism?
Okay.
That seems to focus more on, like, how law actually works.
Yeah. You're right. Legal realists aren't as interested in these lofty theories. They're focused on how judges make decisions in practice.
Okay.
Taking into account social context and even their own personal leanings.
Really?
It's not just about what the law books say,
Wow.
but how those laws get applied in real-life situations.
So less about ideal law and more about
Law in action.
law in action.
Precisely.
I like it.
They believe in this thing called legal instrumentalism.
Legal instrumentalism.
Seeing law as a tool to achieve certain goals.
Fair.
And those goals aren't always about morality.
Right.
Sometimes it's about pragmatism, even achieving outcomes that some might find unsavory.
So they're admitting that the law isn't this pure, perfect system.
Realism recognizes that law can be used for many purposes, reflecting the complexities and sometimes the contradictions within society itself.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so legal philosophy is all about peeling back the layers and seeing the power dynamics at play.
That leads us perfectly into critical legal study.
Critical legal study.
CLS takes this analysis even further.
Okay.
It aims to expose these hidden power structures and inconsistencies within the legal system, particularly those that disadvantage marginalized groups.
So are they like the conspiracy theorists?
Not exactly.
Of the legal world?
CLS scholars are very rigorous in their analysis. They're looking for these hidden agendas and biases that shape the law in ways that we might not even realize. Okay. One of their key ideas is legal indeterminacy.
Legal indeterminacy.
A concept really championed by Roberto Unger.
Roberto Unger.
He argued that rules are riddled with exceptions.
Okay.
And legal outcomes can be manipulated to benefit those already in power.
So they're saying that the law isn't always objective and neutral?
Yeah.
That's a little unsettling.
And building on CLS, we have critical race theory.
Okay.
Or CRT. This focuses specifically on how law perpetuates racial inequality, arguing that racism is deeply embedded in our legal systems, even when it's not explicitly stated.
So CRT is saying that even laws that appear neutral can still have discriminatory effects.
You got it.
Because of like the history and the context.
It brings a crucial perspective by highlighting how race and power intersect within our legal frameworks. Okay. It's an essential lens for understanding the complexities of law and justice.
Man, this is making me question everything I thought I knew about law.
That's the beauty of legal philosophy.
Yeah.
It challenges us to think beyond the surface.
Right.
And grapple with the deeper complexities of our legal systems and the societies they govern.
Speaking of complexity, what about the rule of law?
Ah, yes, the rule of law.
It sounds simple enough, but I have a feeling it's...
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we talk about the rule of law, we actually have to distinguish between two different conceptions. Okay. The formal and the substantive.
Lay it on me.
So the formal conception focuses on the procedures of law. Okay. Things like transparency, consistency, due process. Okay. It's about ensuring that the law is applied fairly and predictably no matter who you are. Okay. But the substantive conception goes deeper, looking at the actual content of the law and whether it lines up with principles of justice and morality.
So formal is like playing by the rules, and substantive is making sure that the rules themselves...
That's a great way to put it.
...are fair.
Yeah. And here's a key critique. Okay. Some argue that this substantive view, with its focus on individual rights... can clash with democratic decision-making, especially when property rights are involved.
Give me a real-world example.
Absolutely.
Right.
Think of the Lucas v. South Carolina Coastal Council case. Okay. This was about a developer who wanted to build on beachfront property, but the state blocked him. Due to environmental concerns. Right. The Supreme Court ultimately sided with the developer. Wow. Saying that the government's action was basically taking his property unconstitutionally.
So in that case, the individual's rights won out over what the state was trying to do?
Precisely. It perfectly highlights that tension between protecting individual rights and allowing for democratic decision that might limit those rights for broader social goals.
So we're talking about the balance of power between individuals and the state.
Which brings us to our last topic
for
this part of the dive. Democracy and representation. Ah, yes, the age-old question, who gets to speak for the people?
Right.
It's a concept debated for centuries and goes right to the heart of what democracy actually means.
Already.
All right, so the philosophical idea of representation is about why we need designated individuals to voice collective interests. In a large, complex society, it's impossible for everyone to directly participate in every decision.
Right.
So we elect representatives to act on our behalf, to be our voices in the halls of power.
But how do we know that they're really reflecting the will of the people?
That's the challenge.
Right.
Making sure that representation is truly democratic
Right.
and not just a front for those in power to hold on to control.
Okay.
So how does all of this connect to the type of democracy we have in many Western countries?
Okay.
Liberal democracy.
Yeah.
One crucial aspect is this idea of mutual toleration.
Mutual toleration.
Liberal democracy. It's vital that we accept the right of others to hold different views.
Right.
Even views that we might find completely abhorrent.
Right.
We can disagree vehemently, but we respect their right to participate in the process.
So it's not just majority rule.
Right.
It's also about making sure that minorities have a voice.
You nailed it.
Even if their views are challenging the status quo.
Liberal democracy requires a certain humility.
Okay.
We need to admit that we might be wrong, that others may have a point, even if we disagree.
I like that.
Yeah.
That makes me think about populism.
Okay.
Which has been on the rise recently.
Yeah.
It seems like it rejects this whole idea of mutual toleration.
That's a very sharp observation.
It claims to be the only legitimate voice of the people.
Populism poses a challenge to liberal democratic norms.
Right.
Because it often aims to shut down dissent and exclude those who don't fit their worldview.
Man, this is heavy stuff.
We've covered so much ground.
Yeah, we've gone from like the foundations of legal systems all the way to the nature of democracy itself. My brain needs a break.
Yeah, I hear you.
This is
doing some serious mental weightlifting.
Yeah.
How about we take a breather and come back for part 2 with fresh minds? There's still so much more to explore.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm ready to go.
Okay, good.
We were talking about liberal democracy.
Yeah.
And like the challenges of populism before we took our little break.
Yes.
It feels like that's playing out like in the headlines every day.
It is. You're absolutely right. Populism is very much a live issue.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because it often positions itself as the voice of the people.
Right.
Claiming to represent the true will of the majority.
Okay.
But the catch is that their definition of the people tends to be very narrow.
Right.
And excludes anyone who doesn't fit their specific ideology.
So it's less about representing everyone and more about representing a select group.
Exactly.
That aligns with their views.
Populist movements often resort to demonizing their opponents, labeling them as elites, enemies of the people, or part of some corrupt establishment.
Okay.
This creates this dangerous us versus them mentality. Yeah. And that really undermines the principles of pluralism and tolerance.
Right. Which are so crucial for a healthy democracy.
It's kind of unsettling.
It is.
Right? It feels like populism can exploit people's fears and anxieties.
Unfortunately, that's often the case.
Yeah.
Populist leaders often tap into feelings of resentment or grievance among certain segments of society, offering simplistic solutions to complex problems.
Okay.
They might scapegoat minorities, immigrants, or other groups, placing the blame for societal challenges squarely on their shoulders.
This makes me think about like critical thinking.
Yes.
And media literacy.
Absolutely.
If we're not careful, we can fall prey to these oversimplified narratives,
survive.
Manipulative tactics.
It's more vital than ever to be informed and discerning consumers of information. We need to question assumptions, look beyond the surface rhetoric of what we hear, especially when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
Being able to recognize those hallmarks of populism and understand the threats it poses to democratic values is crucial. Okay, so we've been exploring all these different schools of legal thought.
We have.
Positivism, natural law, realism, critical legal studies.
Yeah.
We even touched on the philosophical foundations of democracy itself. Is there a way to connect all these different pieces?
That's a fantastic question.
To see the bigger picture.
If we take a step back and consider all these various theories, we start to see this recurring tension between competing values and ideals. On one hand, we have this desire for order predictability. a system of clear rules.
Right.
That's where positivism comes in. But on the other hand, we also recognize the importance of justice, morality, and fairness.
Right.
That's the driving force behind natural law and critical legal studies.
So it's this balancing act.
Got it.
Between sticking to the rules and making sure the rules are just...
And then we have legal realism, which reminds us that law is not just some abstract concept floating out there.
Okay.
It's a living system shaped by human beings with their own biases, interpretations, and agendas.
It's like that saying, justice is what the judge had for breakfast.
Exactly.
I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean?
It highlights how these human factors can influence the application of law.
Right.
And as we saw with the debate about the rule of law, even a seemingly straightforward concept like property rights can get tangled up in complex questions about individual liberty, the common good, and the role of government.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It seems like legal philosophy doesn't offer any easy answers.
It doesn't.
But it gives us a framework
It does.
for tackling these big questions about power, justice, and the very nature of law itself.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's about grappling with those big questions and realizing there are often multiple, sometimes conflicting perspectives.
Right.
It's a process of exploration.
Okay.
Not a search for definitive answers.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes.
I'm thrilled to hear that.
To how intricate legal systems are. It's not just about memorizing laws. It's about understanding the idea
exactly.
and the values that underpin them.
This exploration has really only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's a vast world of legal philosophy out there waiting to be discovered.
I feel like we could go on for hours.
We could.
But I'm also mindful of your time.
Okay.
We've already covered a ton of ground.
Yeah.
I think it's time to move on to the final part of our legal philosophy journey.
Let's do it.
There's still so much more to unpack.
I've saved some of the most thought-provoking insights for last.
Okay.
We're going to delve even deeper into these ideas and explore how they connect to our lives in the 21st century.
Okay, we're back for the final part.
Part 3.
Of our legal philosophy deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like my brain is still buzzing from all these ideas that we've been exploring. Positivism, natural law, the complexities of democracy and populism.
That's a lot.
What else have you got?
We've covered so much ground. But there's one more thread I want to pull on.
Okay.
Remember that tension between individual rights and collective decision-making. We keep bumping into it, right?
Yeah.
It's come up in our discussions about the rule of law, property rights.
Yeah.
Even the very essence of democracy.
It's like this constant tug of war.
Yeah.
Between like freedom and order.
You
know, the rights of the individual versus what's best for society as a whole.
Exactly.
It feels like we're constantly trying to find that balance.
And this tension becomes even more pronounced in today's world, right? This increasingly interconnected world.
Okay.
Globalization throws a whole new set of challenges at us when it comes to navigating these diverse legal systems, cultural norms, and political ideologies.
It's like we're trying to create this like global rule book.
Yeah.
But with so many different players and perspectives. How could we possibly get everyone on the same page?
And that's where legal philosophy can be such a powerful tool. It encourages us to step back and examine the assumptions that we make about law and justice.
Okay.
What might seem like a universal principle in one culture could be viewed completely differently in another. Legal philosophy helps us to see those different perspectives and understand how history and social context shape legal systems around the world.
It's like that saying, one person's justice is another person's injustice.
Precisely.
You know, what feels fair to one group might feel oppressive to another.
As our world becomes increasingly interconnected, we can't simply impose our own legal frameworks on others. We need to engage in dialogue, seek common ground, and find ways to bridge those conceptions of law and justice.
That makes me think about international law.
Yeah.
And the efforts to establish rules that apply across national borders. But even then, there are so many obstacles when it comes to like enforcing those rules and making sure everyone's playing by the same standards.
You're hitting on a crucial point.
Yeah.
International law is this fascinating and complex arena where all these philosophical debates come to life. It's this constant struggle to balance national sovereignty with the need for global cooperation to protect human rights while respecting cultural differences.
So there's no easy solution.
There isn't.
No one size fits all.
But that's precisely why legal philosophy is so valuable.
Okay, how so?
It equips us with the critical thinking skills and the conceptual tools to participate in these difficult conversations, to appreciate the diverse perspectives, and to work towards solutions that are both just and practical.
I'm starting to understand why you're so passionate about this.
I love it.
It's not just an academic exercise.
No.
It's about like engaging with the world around us.
Yeah.
And grappling with the big questions that shape our societies and our lives.
Yeah. It's about understanding the power of law, the complexities of justice, and the ongoing quest to create a world where everyone's rights are respected and where we can coexist peacefully and fairly.
Wow. I feel like I've been on an intellectual roller coaster.
I know, right?
We've gone from the foundations of legal systems to the challenges of a globalized world. I'm mentally exhausted.
I hear you.
But in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Before we wrap up, I have one last question.
Okay.
Given all the complexities and the competing values that we've discussed, what gives you hope for the future of law and justice?
What gives me hope is the very fact that we're having these conversations. That people are engaging with these issues, debating different perspectives, and searching for solutions. It's a sign that we care. We deeply care about creating a more just and equitable world. Legal philosophy at its heart is about asking the right questions, challenging assumptions, and pushing ourselves to think critically and creatively. And as long as we keep doing that, keep asking those questions, keep striving for progress, I believe there's always reason for optimism.
That's a beautiful thought.
Thanks.
And one that I think our listeners will appreciate. This has been an awesome deep dive.
It has.
And I want to thank you for walking us through it.
Yeah.
And for being such a fantastic guide through the world of legal philosophy.
It's been my absolute pleasure. And to our listener, I encourage you to continue exploring these ideas, engage in thoughtful discussions, and never stop questioning the world around you.
That's the perfect note to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
And until next time.
Yes.
Keep those brain gears turning.